Hello, my name is Ashawn Lawrence, and I'll be talking about adolescent opioid usage and how it can affect intimate relationships that they might have. Before I begin, let us get a working definition of what opioids actually are. Opioids are a class of drugs that help to relieve pain. Opioid includes drugs such as heroin, fentanyl, morphine, oxycodone, and hydrocodone. Opioid misuse has become a major public health problem among youths in the United States. The first opioid epidemic occurred during the 1840s and has increased by 528% over the next 50 years. With drug overdose deaths tripling within the last decade, opioid usage continues to be a major public health concern. Despite the many efforts of policymakers to combat the opioid crisis, the mortality and morbidity for opioid misuse has continued to worsen in every state within the United States. A study done by my research mentor, Dr. Johnson, and myself seeked to examine the quality of dating relationships among justice involved teens who use opioids. These justice involved teens are comprised of 79,960 teenagers who have entered the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice between 2004 to 2015. Each adolescent who entered was given a PACT assessment that asked various questions. For the purpose of this study, the report on if they viewed their dating relationships as pro-social, meaning positive, or antisocial, meaning negative, is what we're interested in. I hypothesized that the ratio of adolescents who reported antisocial relationships were more likely to use opioids than those who did not use opioids, and also that a higher ratio of females would report antisocial relationships than males. This figure just shows the breakdown of the data attained. Over 80,000 adolescent assessments were recorded by the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice between the years I mentioned earlier. Of that, 481 adolescent responses were omitted from the study because of some missing information. Therefore, over 79,000 assessments were used for this study, of which 35,403, which represents 44%, represented opioid users, and 44,557, which represents 55%, represented non-opioid users. Here, I am briefly going to go over some of the more profound results. We can see that the amount of opioid users who reported being in a pro-social and antisocial relationship was about the same. We can also see that from this table, the majority of opioid users are white males. Lastly, we can also see that most people who are using opioids have no history of mental health problems and merely, if ever, have had a history of depression and anxiety. In this table, we are focusing on odds ratios. These predict the odds of an outcome happening given a particular exposure compared to the odds of that outcome happening given the absence of that particular exposure. Here, we see that the partner in an antisocial relationship is 2.48 times more likely to misuse opioids than someone who is not in a relationship. So basically, you're comparing the odds ratios to their respective reference groups in parentheses. Here, let's think about predictive measures on the y-axis as being synonymous to probabilities. Therefore, overall, we see that antisocial partnerships have a higher probability of misusing opioids, with white people having the highest probability across the board. What do you think are some of the limitations of this study? What states do you think would even have higher rates of adolescent opioid misuse? And what states do you think will have lower rates of adolescent misuse than Florida?